Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Let's get into tonight's story, but please don't forget to like and leave me a comment. I turned on my phone and looked at the message that had just come in. Dilarum, I'm really sorry to say this, but I can't help it. Ever since I saw your mother, I haven't been able to get her out of my mind. I've completely fallen for her. I was embarrassed to tell you this, but I decided to be honest. I feel like I've found my soulmate. I don't care that she's older than me. I'm truly in love with her. I threw my phone aside. This was the fourth man in my life who had fallen in love with my mother. Hearing the click of her heels on the wooden floor, I turned my head toward her. I gave her a faint smile and said, Farah Khanum, looks like Sapir has fallen for you too. Let's see what you'll do with this one. Don't settle for less this time. His father owns 3 companies, and he's got plenty himself. Get as much as you can out of him, for generations if you can. She burst out laughing and turned her phone toward me. She was already chatting with Sapir. I ignored her, leaned back on the couch, and tried to close my eyes. My mom had grown up poor, really poor. She was one of 10 or 12 kids, completely overlooked by everyone. My dad, on the other hand, had been a 60-year-old rich man whose wife had died years before. He had 2 sons and a daughter living abroad. When my mom, still a high school girl, met him in our neighborhood, he was there for a construction project. She saw her chance. For the first time, she tried to make someone fall for her. Every day, going to and from school, she'd find ways to catch his attention. Eventually, she succeeded. My dad truly fell in love with her. He risked his reputation and married her, a teenage girl, and I was the result of that marriage. They lived together for about 5 years before he passed away. Everyone believed my mom had inherited all that wealth thanks to him. But when his kids returned from abroad, they took everything, every penny, that belonged to us. Mom couldn't do anything about it. To survive, she started charming men. For most people, the easiest thing in the world is drinking water, breathing, or lying down and staring at a screen. For my mom, the easiest thing in the world was making people fall for her. With unbelievable ease, she could make anyone obsessed with her. If a man didn't work, she'd seduce his wife instead. I lost count of how many partners or husbands she had, probably over 60 or 70. By the time I was a teenager, she had made enough money from those men to live comfortably. She looked amazing, youthful, stylish, full of life. You'd never guess she was my mom. Actually, the age gap between us wasn't huge. She had me when she was still in high school. She was always smiling, always cheerful. I had never seen her cry, except when she wanted to manipulate a man. Maybe that was her secret, her constant joy, her playfulness. She was a flirt through and through. We lived in luxury, and she never worked a single day. All our money came from her relationships. She never had other kids, and she firmly believed there was no place for purity in this world. She even encouraged me to date and connect with people from a young age. But I wasn't like her. I'd wear the expensive designer clothes she bought me, hang out with friends, and flirt a little when someone interesting came along, mostly to get her attention. And whenever I did, she would swoop in and steal him away like it was nothing. Sapir was the 4th guy she had done that with. I was 23 and had dated a few guys, 6, maybe, and introduced 4 of them to her. She managed to charm every single one and get money out of them. As I sat there that afternoon, basking in the sunlight coming through the window like a lazy cat, half asleep. My mom was busy texting. Then suddenly the doorbell rang. She went to open it, and moments later came back beaming, holding a small box. She opened it. Inside was a very expensive piece of jewelry. Sapir had sent it as a surprise. Maybe to others that would seem shocking. But for me, it was just another normal day. I still don't know what kind of magic she used, but somehow she always made people act this foolish and fall right into her trap. I glanced down at her heels, sharp and pointy. For the 1,000th time in my life, I said, "Mom, there's no one here but us. Why on earth do you wear heels around the house? Take them off. It's not like we have guests." She crossed one leg over the other and smirked. "You still haven't gotten used to it?" "I just can't walk without heels anymore," she said. She was something else, truly a phenomenon, full of strange little habits that made me wonder if she was even a normal person. Those days, life felt so empty to me. There was money, plenty of it, but no love, no warmth. Everything around me felt gray. The beautiful house, the closets full of designer clothes, the endless accessories, bags, and shoes, even the bank cards she loaded for me, none of it meant anything anymore. My world had turned colorless, meaningless. It was as if I had reached a state of complete emptiness. I don't know if you can understand that when nothing matters anymore, when nothing feels important. In our house, there were no boundaries, no rules, no lines you couldn't cross. I could bring someone home, hold their hand right in front of my mother, and she wouldn't even care. And let me tell you, that kind of life is not good. A life without limits, it leads you straight into nothingness. My mother never cried, except when she wanted to trick men. So I cried instead, for both of us. Every night, I'd light a candle and cry. Sometimes I'd ask God, "Why did you let a 60-year-old man have a child? Why did you bring me into this world?" If my mother had been alone, living the life she wanted, fine. But I didn't want this kind of life. As a child, I just wanted a mother and a father. Not this unbearable loneliness that filled my chest. My days drifted by aimlessly, coffee shops, short trips, empty routines. Then one day it hit me. Why am I living such a meaningless life? Why don't I do something I actually love? Work isn't just for survival, it gives you purpose. So I decided to start working to change my life completely on my own. No help, no friends, no one. I used my mom's money to open a boutique. Of course, she was furious. "A woman shouldn't work," she said. "Why don't you just find a boyfriend?" I promise I won't go after him this time. Go out, have fun, enjoy life. But I didn't feel like I belonged in her kind of life anymore. So I went ahead with my plan. It wasn't as easy as it sounds. Sure, I had money, but setting up a boutique took everything out of me. Running around, choosing fabrics, hiring designers and tailors, deciding on styles and materials, it was chaos. But it kept me busy. From morning till midnight, I was at the boutique. Eventually, I even put a small bed in the back room and started sleeping there. My mom never asked if I'd come home or not. She didn't care. 1.5 years passed. My brand was finally getting noticed. Rich clients started ordering custom pieces. I worked out hard and even became the model for my own brand. I started an online shop and posted photos of myself wearing my designs. After a year and a half of nonstop work, I finally saw results. My brand was growing fast. The money I had invested, I was now earning it back. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel empty anymore. Every morning I'd wake up and rush to work, stay there until late at night. Sometimes I'd go out with friends, and sometimes I'd just sleep all day. But my mind was always buzzing with new design ideas, clothes that no one else was making. To be fair, many of my best ideas came from her, my mother. Not because she told me what to design, but because she was my inspiration. Her aura, her confidence, her femininity, that energy flowed into my designs. That's why wealthy women adored my brand. They said my clothes made them feel powerful, alive. The office where my boutique was located was in a fancy building. Next door, there was an engineering firm. I knew the guy who ran it, a very polite man. We had met a few times in the elevator or when paying maintenance fees for the building. That evening, around sunset, we both got into the elevator. I smiled and said hello. Right then, my phone rang. It was someone I had paid to send me fabrics. But the guy had disappeared with my money, and the fabrics never arrived. It had been months since that supplier finally sent my fabrics, and when they arrived, they were cheap, low-quality material I would never use. I couldn't risk ruining my brand's reputation with something like that. I was furious. I had lost money and time, and my brand's image was at stake. When I saw his number calling again, I snatched up my phone and yelled, "I have nothing left to say to you. I've already filed a complaint. You'll regret this, I promise. It's been 4 months since I placed that order. You kept my money all this time, and now you send me this trash? I'm returning every single piece of fabric you sent." The man started cursing at me, horrible insults, shouting that I couldn't do anything to him. My throat tightened, tears welled up, and I was just about to hang up when suddenly, a strong hand reached forward and took my phone away. The elevator doors opened as I stepped out, staring in shock at the man beside me, the engineer from next door. He started arguing with a man on the phone. His tone was deep, sharp, and serious. "Don't think you can mess with someone just because she's a woman or because she's alone," he said firmly. "You've got until tomorrow morning to send her fabrics, or I'll handle it myself, and trust me, you won't like how that turns out." Then he hung up and handed the phone back to me. I just stood there, frozen, staring at him in disbelief. He ran a hand through his hair and said, "If he doesn't send your fabrics by tomorrow, let me know. I'll have a few of my guys go and handle it. They'll bring your stuff back." I thanked him over and over, telling him I felt bad for dragging him into my mess. He just smiled and said, "That's business. No matter how much money you make, never pay anyone in full before they deliver. Give them a check, let them send the goods first, then you pay. Trust me, they're always eager to sell. They'll take the deal." I lowered my head and said quietly, "I didn't know any of that. I started this business all by myself a year and a half ago. I've never seen anyone do business in my house. No one to learn from. Everything I know, I learned the hard way. If my boutique is standing today, it's not because I'm smart or experienced. It's because I worked endlessly for it. I spend so many long hours in that office, working nonstop." He smiled faintly and said,
"Ever noticed?
"You may not pay attention to me, but I've seen you. How you unload shipments with your workers, how you talk to your designers. I even follow your page. I know you're the model for your own brand, doing all the photo shoots yourself. It really felt like I was finally getting somewhere in life. He even told me I was working too hard and deserved something bright and beautiful in return. Then he glanced at his watch and said he had to go, but made me promise to call him the next morning and let him know if the fabrics had arrived. That day was the first time I met Benjamin. The next morning, when the fabric still hadn't been delivered, I went straight to his office. It was my first time there. The place was beautiful. I stood quietly near the door and told him the supplier still hadn't sent anything. He just nodded and said calmly, "Don't worry, you'll have them by tonight." I didn't believe him. I thought he was just trying to sound confident. How could anyone make that horrible man send the fabrics after all this time? But by sunset, I heard the workers coming in, carrying rolls and rolls of fabric. My jaw literally dropped. I smiled and said, "Mr. Benjamin, you shouldn't have brought them here. They need to go to the workshop." He gave a faint smile and said, "I don't know where that is. Just send them over tomorrow morning." I thanked him again and again. The next day, I sent him a big bouquet of flowers as a thank you gift. He messaged me, saying it wasn't necessary, and told me that if I ever ran into problems like that again, he'd be there to help. Later, he came to my office and said, "Your office looks great, but my design team can make it even better." I didn't hesitate. I agreed immediately. His team came in and started working, and from that day on, we saw each other almost every day. As time passed, we got closer. When we finished our daily tasks and had no more meetings or deadlines, we'd go to the cafe in the building. I'd drink coffee, and he'd always order tea. The more I got to know him, the more I admired him. He told me about his background, how his father had been a laborer, his mother a housewife, and how he built everything from scratch. Now he was successful, and he still took care of his parents. I didn't fall in love with him right away. It wasn't one of those love at first sight things. But no one had ever stood up for me the way he did that day. No one had ever protected me like that. Whether I wanted to or not, that moment changed something inside me. He wasn't like the men my mother used to date or the ones I had been with. He was traditional, grounded, and respected his culture, the complete opposite of my world. I tried to seem like someone who had boundaries too, someone with a family who cared about when I came home, just so I wouldn't scare him away. 6 months passed, and though he hadn't officially asked me out, we spent a lot of time together. I could tell he liked me, but I didn't let him drive me home. I was scared he'd see what my real life looked like, the men coming and going from our house, and realize I wasn't who he thought I was. One night, around 10 p.m., we were having dinner at a restaurant. I looked at my watch and said I had to go. For the first time, Benjamin reached out and placed his hand over mine. My heart skipped a beat. My cheeks flushed red, and I looked down, trying to hide it. He said softly, almost nervously, "Kiana, I know this isn't the best time or place, but I can't hold it in anymore. I've fallen for you, for your beauty, yes, but also for your strength. You're not relying on anyone. You're building everything on your own, working nonstop, and still managing to stay kind and composed. And after all the times we've gone out, not once have you acted like the other girls. You're special, one of a kind, and I've given you my heart." Then he added, "I don't want an answer right now. Go home, think about it. If you feel the same, tell me tomorrow so we can move forward and start planning our engagement." I forced a small smile and asked, "Move forward with what, exactly?" He chuckled softly. "With marriage, of course. I'm not the kind of man who keeps someone waiting. When I love someone, I mean it." I smiled faintly, but inside, my heart was breaking. "I've gotten to know you," I thought, "but you have no idea who I really am." I said goodbye with a heavy heart, trying not to cry. When I got home that night and opened the door with my key, I froze. I could hear my mother's voice, but not just hers. There were two men's voices, laughing, whispering. I shut the door quietly. My hands were shaking. I slid down against the wall and sat on the floor, trying not to make a sound as tears rolled down my face. For the first time, my shoulders trembled from the kind of pain I didn't even know existed. How could I ever bring Benjamin, a religious, traditional man who valued family and morals, into this house? If he ever met my mother, she'd instantly ruin everything. She was charming, manipulative. She'd flirt with him before I could even introduce them properly. I went straight to my room and locked the door. It had never mattered before what my mother did, but now it did. I didn't want Benjamin to ever think I was like her. I sat on the floor, staring at the dark ceiling, and started to pray.
You whispered, "Go."
I haven't been a good person, but maybe that's because I never had a good example. Please don't let my heart break. I've never loved anyone like this before. Please let me end up with him. I cried until I couldn't anymore. Then I wiped my face and whispered again, "I won't worry anymore. I know you have a plan for me, better than anything I could imagine. Please just help me trust it." The next day, Benjamin came to see me. He looked calm, gentle as always, and said, "So, what's your answer?" I took a deep breath and said, "Yes, I want this. I think I've truly fallen for you." He smiled, that wide, bright smile that made me melt, and said, "You just made me the happiest man alive." Then his face turned serious. He sat beside me and said softly, "Kiana, I hate lies. Never lie to me. I'd rather hear a painful truth than a sweet lie. Promise me that, no matter what happens, you'll always be honest with me." I nodded. He smiled again. "Your past doesn't matter. What matters is from now on, our future." For a month, we were together, truly together. Those were the best days of my life. For the first time ever, I didn't feel alone in this big, cold world. It felt like God had finally given me my person. We went out, shopped together, tried new foods, rode bikes, took walks, even went horseback riding. Sometimes I joined him at his projects. I'd help with creative ideas, and he'd just smile, never interfering in my work. The only thing he asked was that I stop modeling my own designs. He said it hurt him to see strangers leaving inappropriate comments under my photos. I loved him so much that I agreed without hesitation. I hired a model, a beautiful one, even more stunning than me, to take my place in the photos. Honestly, it made my work easier. About a month later, one evening, Benjamin and I were sitting in my room, eating dinner and watching a movie on his phone. I picked up a piece of potato and said playfully, "See? I told you if that old man was behind all this, you could spit in my face." He grinned mischievously. "Why would I spit in your face?" I frowned and laughed awkwardly. "Stop it. Behave yourself." He burst out laughing, loud and carefree. That's when I saw movement in the doorway. My heart dropped. My mother was standing there, watching us. My face went pale. My heart was pounding so fast, I thought it would explode. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want Benjamin to see her, to sense what kind of woman she was. The men from her past had never mattered to me before. I used to laugh at how she'd trick them out of their money. But now I was terrified. She looked at me with a sly smile, her eyes glinting with mischief, then winked and slowly walked into the room. I stood up quickly and forced a smile.
Mom.
She smiled back. Hi, my beautiful girl. You never visit your poor mother anymore, huh? If I knew this business of yours would take you away from me, I'd never have let you start it. I laughed nervously. Poor mother? You're younger than half the people you call your friends, she laughed. That loud, fake laugh of hers, then turned to Benjamin and said hello. To my surprise, she didn't reach out to shake his hand. Normally, she always did. In my head, I thought she's smart. She knows exactly how to play people. I swallowed hard, still shaking, as she tucked a strand of her freshly dyed hair behind her ear and said sweetly, I need a red dress. Something stunning. Can you make me one? Oh, and aren't you going to introduce me? I gave her a faint, embarrassed smile and said, Benjamin, this is my mom. I was going to introduce you two later, after we got to know each other a little better. I just wanted to make sure everything felt right first.
I'm sorry.
She smiled, placed her hand gently on my shoulder, and said, You're an independent, smart, and strong girl. Whatever decision you make is the right one. If you felt there was no need to tell me, then it must have been the right choice. I'm really glad I got to meet you, Mr. Benjamin. Then, without paying much attention to him, she started picking out a dress. I gave her one of the most beautiful pieces in the boutique, and she left happily after saying goodbye. After she was gone, Benjamin turned to me and said, I didn't expect your mom to be like that. I frowned slightly and asked, Like what? What do you mean? He shrugged. I don't know, she was just… I don't know, forget it. I didn't press him further. I just waited, expecting a message from him, something like, Kiana, I've fallen for your mom.
I'm sorry.
Please introduce me to her. But no such message ever came. Instead, his love and affection for me kept growing stronger, and my mom didn't seem to interfere with us at all. A week later, when she saw me, she smiled and said, Why are you avoiding me lately? My mom was always sharp. I shrugged and said, Avoiding you? I'm just tired from work at the boutique. I barely have the energy to socialize anymore. She looked at me softly and said, Even with your own mother? Kiana, I know I might not be like other moms, but I did my best. When you were sick, I stayed up all night beside you. I never let you suffer. I've always had your back, no matter what. Please don't forget that, okay? Don't forget and keep loving me, just like when you were little. I got emotional. She was right. She wasn't a bad mother. Not like the others maybe, and yeah, she'd messed up her own life, but she'd been good to me. I hugged her, and for the first time ever, I saw her cry. Just a few tears, but it broke me. She held me tight and whispered in my ear, This is the first time you've made the right choice. I'm sure you'll be happy with this man. Don't worry, nobody can figure out what I'm up to. No one ever does. You're safe. I wiped the corner of my eye and laughed softly. Don't you dare flirt with him. She burst out laughing and said, If he's that easily swayed, then he's not a man worth loving anyway. Everything just seemed to fall into place after that. The mother I thought would try to manipulate Benjamin when she saw him stood behind me like a mountain of support. She prepared everything for the proposal, tidied up our house, even went so far as to research Benjamin, figuring out what kind of person he was, and then came to tell me that I had made one of the best choices of my life. In short, everything came together so that I could taste happiness in this world and pursue the life I truly wanted. Meanwhile, they had come to propose, and we were almost at the point of getting engaged. Then one night, Benjamin called me, full of anger and hatred, saying he hated me and other harsh things. When he said all that, I didn't respond. I just sat in silence at the edge of my bed and thought. My intuition had told me from the start that he would figure everything out. I didn't know how he knew or from where, but I had felt from the beginning that Benjamin understood everything. After unloading all his anger and hanging up, I sent him a message, telling him I love him very much. I don't care what the people around me have done. Since I grew up, I have lived my life the way I wanted, the lifestyle I chose. I never lied to him. I am the same Kiana, he knows. If he wants and agrees, he can come forward. If not, he can do whatever he feels is right, and I won't pursue it any further. It was 6 a.m., and I hadn't slept. At 6 a.m., he messaged me, saying he hadn't slept either and had been roaming the streets. He felt this love was worth me telling him the truth, or at least giving him a chance to talk again. He said, "Whenever you wake up, come to the cafe where we always had breakfast together." I quickly replied, "I didn't sleep either. I've been up all night." He came to our house, I got into his car, and after driving a little, he stopped on a side street. He looked at me and said that my brother had called him. I lowered my head. So they had betrayed us. I don't know why they held such a grudge against us. He explained that, technically, my brother isn't really my brother, and he told me how my mother had ruined his elderly father's life. I smirked and asked, "What exactly did she do?" "A 60-year-old man who marries a high school girl, then dies in old age. What could have happened to him for her to hold such a grudge?" He leaned back and continued. "A man contacted him, claiming to be my brother. He said his father had been cheerful and lively, but married a woman who had stayed in contact with her ex-boyfriend from before marriage. That relationship produced a daughter. At first, my father thought the daughter was his, but later realized she wasn't. His wife was incredibly corrupt, having relationships with all her colleagues and my father's subordinates, which caused him to have a stroke and die. I asked how I could know he was telling the truth. He replied that it could be verified. They had threatened the woman, taken my father to court under the pretense that he had no medicine, and then she ran away. He investigated and confirmed it. Everything went to the children and my mother, and I got nothing. He said I couldn't even raise my child properly, that I was like that daughter's mother. He said he had 2 legs and could take the other 2 and run away, freeing himself from us. At that point, nothing else mattered. What mattered was Benjamin stayed, and his love was there for me. I realized how miserable I had been, how unfortunate, not even knowing who my father was or how much my mother had lied. I broke down crying, and seeing that, he understood that I had no knowledge of these things. He didn't leave me alone. He was my mountain of support. He told me to cut ties with my mother, and after marriage, neither he would come to our house, nor I to his. I packed my things. upset that my mother had spent all these years telling me my father was someone else and left her. She didn't get angry, didn't follow me. I heard that sometimes she goes to Europe, sometimes she's around here. I was doing well, working in my office for a while. Then I married Benjamin. At first, his family was upset that my mother hadn't come to the wedding, and I was so lonely I had no relatives. But once they got to know me, they accepted me and didn't interfere anymore. My marriage with Benjamin produced a daughter and a son. My boutique still runs. I go there in the morning until noon, then come home. His mother loves the kids and raises them herself, though of course I'm still their mother. But during the hours my boutique keeps me busy, instead of putting them in daycare, she takes care of them herself. She says she loves this work, Benny, the one you work at in the same office. We have a good life together, but I notice that sometimes he gets scared and doubts me. He goes through my phone and checks things. Because of that, I make sure my phone is always accessible to him. I ask for his permission before going out, tell him where I'm going and all that. Other than that, there's no real trouble or harassment. He's very careful, and because of that, I never feel lonely or miss my mother. I don't feel the lack of a family, and I feel happy being with him. I wanted to share my life story with you and say, if you're not in a good situation, if you feel like you're on the wrong path, when you choose the right path, work hard toward it, and show God that you want to change your life, He will change it for you. When I stopped chasing easy money that my mother would get from here and there, I stood up for myself, opened my own boutique, worked hard, faced ups and downs, and God turned my life upside down in the best way. I wish for all of you who've listened to my story that if your life isn't what you want, it may be turned upside down, and like mine, the bottom ends up being much more beautiful than the top. I love this life, a life full of personal boundaries, beliefs, culture, red lines, and humanity. The life my mother had prepared for me was a real hell. Of course, I wish my mother health and wellness. Sometimes we talk on the phone, but very rarely because I don't want her to get emotional and ask to meet me, which could cause problems. I know my husband's red line is my mother. He doesn't want me to have any contact with her. That's my life story. I'd like to know your thoughts. If you were in my place, what would you do? Would you prioritize your future and your children's life, or would you secretly visit your mother? Please write me your advice. I really appreciate it. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope you enjoyed it. For me, it's full of lessons and shows that if you want to change your life, you can achieve what you truly desire. I hope you get everything you want. Don't forget to comment and support me. The reason I haven't been around much these days is that I caught a little cold and got caught up in some strange and busy work with my own business. But I promise I'll come online every day. Besides Dark Turn, I don't have another channel where I post a story every day. Take care of yourselves, value yourselves. You are very precious.
Goodbye.